the night before last. We're going to do something about it. So whether you call it federalized or what, and that also includes the graffiti that you see, the papers all over the place, the roads that are in bad shape, the medians that are falling down, the median in between roads that's falling down. We're going to beautify the city, and that includes bringing in the National Guard, maybe very quickly.
The FBI is investigating multiple cars set on fire in Missouri as a hate crime after they found the phrase "Death to the IDF" graffitied nearby. Lucas Tomlinson reports.
When the Clayton, Missouri Police Department arrived on scene at 3 a.m. Tuesday, it found 3 vehicles set on fire. No injuries were reported. The FBI and the St. Louis Regional Bomb Squad and Arson Unit are assisting in the investigation. Leo Terrell, the chairman of the Justice Department's task force to combat anti-Semitism, posted, quote, "An American citizen who served in the IDF returned to his family home. Soon after, he and his family were targeted. Anti-Semitic violence has no place in America, not in St. Louis, and not anywhere. We will pursue every avenue to bring perpetrators to justice."
President Trump intends to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin as soon as next week, but only if it's tied to a peace deal with Ukraine. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says, of course, there are conditions.
Looks like some progress was made yesterday, according to the president, when Mr. Witkoff met with Putin. President Trump thinks that at least lays the groundwork for the opportunity to meet next week. But we should make no mistake about it. The days ahead will be interesting because the new tariffs come into place, tariffs on those who are purchasing Russian oil, the very thing that's continued to fuel and fund Vladimir Putin's terror campaign against the Ukrainian civilians in Kyiv and all around that country.
Apple CEO Tim Cook joined President Trump at the White House on Wednesday to announce a commitment by the tech company to increase its investment in U.S. manufacturing by an additional $100 billion over the next 4 years.
We'll be putting a tariff on of approximately 100% on chips and semiconductors. But if you're building in the United States of America, there's no charge.
For the first time ever, every single new iPhone and every single new Apple Watch sold anywhere in the world will contain cover glass made in Kentucky. We're going to keep building technologies at the heart of our products right here in America.
Wagner College in New York has entered a Title IX agreement after outcry over a male athlete participating in women's fencing. Bronson Woodruff has more.
The institution said it will revise its athletic policies and also give apologies publicly. This is after an investigation found it violated women's rights. Peyton McNabb is an ambassador for Independent Women's Forum.
I'm very thankful that there is an apology being set forth. I think, this sets a clear precedent that schools can no longer hide behind conference policies or social pressure to justify allowing this.
She said she thinks the Department of Education has demonstrated that Title IX protects women and that schools must comply or face consequences.
It's been a wake-up call to universities across the country, and I am incredibly thankful for everyone that stood up and spoke out about this.
The investigation began after Stephanie Turner took a knee and forfeited a match against the man. This was at a USA fencing event at the University of Maryland.
I actually had the privilege of testifying before Congress with Stephanie Turner. She's just an absolute heroine.
McNabb said it was amazing to see Turner's actions that day. She said Turner didn't even know until the day of that she would be competing against a guy.
She could see that and was able to just say, no, that was something that she battled as well. She prayed a lot about it. I think inclusion should never come at the cost of exclusion. And when these male athletes compete in women's sports, it's the women who lose.
I'm Bronson Woodruff.
More news available online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty P.
Every day, AFA offers biblical insight on issues that others aren't willing to touch in the hopes that you'll become a world changer. That's why we're offering an in-depth worldview training course called Activate. 13 different professors teaching 18 sessions, all available online, including a printed workbook to help you apply what you've learned and 1-year access to AFA streaming content to give you even more resources. Find out more about Activate and sign up today at activate.afa.net.
Welcome to Today's Issues. Join us for the next hour as we offer a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Ed Vitagliano.
Well, good morning and welcome to today's issues. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildmon this week. I'm joined in studio by Fred Jackson. Good morning, Fred.
Hi there, Ed.
Tony Vitagliano off the bench.
Hello.
And in. Good morning to you. And then Chris Woodward, our news reporter extraordinaire.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, Chris. It is Thursday, August 7th, and we're just motoring through, Fred, the month of August. Hard to believe. We are already past the first couple of months of summer. But the first week in August, kind of, sort of, is Truth for Youth Bible Week. I always love this week and what we're doing. Why don't you let our listeners know what Truth for Youth Bible Week is all about?
Well, for the 25th year in a row, American Family Radio has teamed up with the Truth for Youth Ministry. What is this all about? Well, Revival Fires International, and many of our listeners have become accustomed to this great week that we have. And Revival Fires International, here's how it works. You call 800-733-4737. 800-733-4737. What Revival Fires International does, they give you one free Truth for Youth Bible. You give that Bible to your daughter, your son, your grandson, your granddaughter, and they take it to school with them, and they offer it to a student that they believe has yet to accept Jesus Christ as their personal Savior. It's as simple as that. And over the years, 25 years, more than 1 million of these Bibles have been distributed into public schools. As you have been pointing out, Ed, this is perfectly legal. You don't have to worry about the ACLU or other liberal groups coming and saying, hey, you can't do that. No, it's perfectly legal for a student to give another student a Bible.
Right.
Perfectly legal. So, once again, the number to call, folks, 800-733-4737. These Truth for Youth Bibles, as we've talked about, they contain the New Testament, but they also contain what would be called comic images that tell the biblical story. And so this is so important. Tim Todd, who heads Revival Fires International, was telling us the other day that at least over the last 25 years, at least 30,000 kids have indicated because of these Bibles, they've given their lives to Jesus Christ. So if you think this doesn't have an eternal impact, folks, it does. Probably many more than 30,000.
Yeah, those are just the ones who have filled out the little card that's in the Bible and taken the step of mailing it in.
Yes.
Only God knows
how
many young people have given their hearts to Christ over this.
What a simple way for you, the listener, for anyone who's listening right now, you can be involved with evangelism.
Right.
Simply by making a phone call, 800-733-4737. Our goal this year, this week, is to give 65,000 Bibles out. And you say, well, that's a lot. Hey, listen, folks, we got a lot of generous listeners out there. They want to get involved with this great evangelistic outreach. You can do that right now.
Well, and by the way, folks, if you have 2 or 3 teenagers in your home, you can get as many Bibles as you have teenagers.
Yes.
One free, one for each is what I'm saying. And grandparents, if you've got 5 or 6 grandkids who are in junior high to high school age, ages 13 through 18, you can get one free Bible for each of them, as long as they agree to give it away.
Yes.
That's the whole point of our faith anyway. By the way, these comics at the front of the Bible, they deal with a whole host of issues. Very well done, by the way. And when I say comics, they're not funny.
No.
This is not Peanuts or Snoopy. These deal with the issues like drugs, witchcraft, homosexuality, sex outside of marriage, alcohol, all those kinds of issues. That's what all those comics are intended to speak to. And that's why these Bibles are popular.
Yeah.
Because you hand someone a New Testament with just the words, of course, that is powerful. We certainly agree with that, but you got to get kids to open it. And that's what the comics are intended to do. And they hit all of these issues from a biblical perspective, including scripture references. By the way, Tim Todd, who was in the office with us here in studio with us on Monday, he said they have just completed a new comic that'll be in the next year's printing, which deals with the issue of gender identity and transgender ideology. So that'll be a great one for next year as well. So help us get 65,000 Bibles into the hands of teens. By the way, you can buy boxes of these Bibles and give them away to kids in your church, or give them away to, young people in your neighborhood. Those boxes of 50, those boxes, Revival Fires Ministry will sell those Bibles for $2 a piece. So $100 gets you 50 of these Bibles. It's a great price and a great outreach. Help us reach 65,000 Bibles and get those into the hands of teens. You get them for free, listeners. Here's how you do it. Call this number, 800-733-4737. That's 800-733-4737. You can visit online, tfy.org. That stands for Truth for Youth, tfy.org. Or you can go to afr.net, and front and center is this campaign, and you can get started there. But help us reach that goal and get the Bible into the hands of young people. All right, Chris.
Well,
first story.
One of the things the Bible tells us is to pray. Pray often, pray without ceasing, and also pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And now would be a good time to do that, because right now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is meeting with security officials to talk about efforts expanding the Gaza war. As we've discussed on this program and on American Family News, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says they are looking to expand operations in Gaza and bring an end to the war with Hamas terrorists that, by the way, started all this when they attacked Israel on October 7th of 2023. I've got some audio that we just aired on our 10 o'clock newscast of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu talking to Fox News channel about this very issue. Clip 13.
You will go immediately into a meeting with your security cabinet. Will Israel take control of all of Gaza?
We intend to, in order to assure our security, remove Hamas there, enable the population to be free of Gaza, and to pass it to civilian governance. That is not Hamas and not anyone advocating the destruction of Israel. That's what we want to do. We want to liberate ourselves and liberate the people of Gaza from the awful terror of Hamas. And you were in the Gaza Strip today. You met Palestinians who are fighting Hamas because finally they see that they have a future. They can rid themselves of this awful tyranny that not only holds our hostages, but holds 2 million Palestinians in Gaza hostage.
You know, Fred, this is one of the things we have mentioned this on the show, but sometimes we forget that there are Palestinians, there are Arabs who, for the most part, are Muslim, but I don't know how many Christian Arabs are in that Gaza Strip. But the point is, they're living under a terror regime, and they have very little choice but to go along with Hamas.
Yeah.
And it's much like, I assume, I've never lived, I didn't live in New York in the 30s or Chicago in the 20s and 30s when there were, mafia families that ran things, and you didn't try to overthrow that. You didn't try to resist that because you could be the next one who wound up disappeared. And so I do like the emphasis that Benjamin Netanyahu just had on freeing the Palestinian people there to have a say in their future that does not involve living under the heel of a terrorist organization.
Yeah, as we sit here right now, it is early evening in Jerusalem, And Prime Minister Netanyahu did this interview with Bill Hammer of Fox News. Bill Hammer normally hosts a program based out of New York, but he's been in Gaza and been in Israel this week. He just did this interview with Netanyahu before this cabinet meeting began. So as I say, as we sit here, the Israeli cabinet is meeting to discuss what to do next. Now, you heard Prime Minister Netanyahu. Here's what he wants. He basically wants to finish off Hamas, that we have to go in there and finish up the job. He's basically saying the time for negotiation is over. Hamas is not interested in a ceasefire. This is not going to happen. As they were airing this interview 10 minutes ago, there was a missile that came out of northern Gaza, and the Iron Dome took care of it, which is a signal that Hamas is still armed.
Right.
They still want to fight. The other thing that Netanyahu made very clear in this interview is Israel wants to turn Gaza over to a civilian government. That's what he says. How possible is that? It's hard to imagine because, as we reported many times, the Palestinian people, most of them have grown up being taught to hate Israel, right, and that their future, if they have a good future, it must involve getting rid of Israel and the Jewish people. So he says that's what he wants for Gaza. There are a lot of other elements in this. You have an Israeli military that has been fighting now for almost 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
They're tired. Hundreds of Israeli soldiers have died. So there is a lot of tension inside of Israel. Mm-hmm. Some say, Netanyahu, just give it up. We want our hostages home. That's all we want. And we've seen these pictures of the hostages in recent days. They're being starved to death. They're being threatened every day. There's about 20 that are still alive. That's what is believed. Apparently, these hostages, according to the reports that I was just listening to, are being held in a very small area in what would be central Gaza along the coast. Gaza is about 26 miles long along that coast of the Mediterranean. So what the Israeli army would have to do if the order comes out of this cabinet meeting, they would have to take that portion. Israel now controls about 75% of Gaza, but they would have to take that last 25%, which is where Hamas is based at the moment. That would involve displacing 1 million Palestinians. It's no small order. A lot of pressure. The Western countries like Canada, UK, France, they're all talking about, statehood for the Palestinians, all of that sort of thing. The mainstream media all over the world. Israel is causing Palestinians to starve to death, all of those sorts of things. So we need to be praying right now for this cabinet meeting. A lot on the shoulders of Benjamin Netanyahu. He may get opposition from his own cabinet ministers. I mean, they may just say, no, we can't do this. Let's just try to negotiate or whatever the case may be. So we will keep track as best we can today of what comes out of this cabinet meeting, but these are very critical hours in Israel.
Well, Tony, one of the things that President Trump said early on was that he wanted Gaza to be kind of a shining example of what could happen in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. He wanted to develop it, and he wanted it to be free, and he wanted it to be outside the control of a terrorist organization. But all of this, all the things that Fred's talked about, what President Trump wants, it is a long road to hoe, as they say, as long as Hamas is in existence, proved by the fact that another missile was fired. Nobody doubts that if Hamas was allowed to remain in existence and in control of Gaza, this whole thing would probably repeat itself in another few years.
Yeah, there's a few aspects of this that kind of intersect with each other. So there is first of all, I don't know what the alternative would be apart from Israel occupying Gaza. I mean, Gaza is no longer what it was. I mean, Gaza City flattened.
It's flattened, yeah.
Rafah flattened. I mean, it's pretty much all rubble. So apart from an alternative, I don't know what alternative there would be to Israel just occupying it. And I believe Israel, I don't think anybody could argue that if Israel decides, if the cabinet meets and decides that to complete the mission, Israel will need to occupy it. I don't see the civilian government that they would turn this over to not being very closely tied, shall we say, to the Israeli government. I just don't think you leave it up to chance, because they've done this before, right? Israel has tried to hand over, they invade, they hand over control back to the people, and let the people decide on what government they want. So you've got that aspect. The other aspect of this is the tremendous suffering that the Palestinian people, the innocent people are going through is that is heartbreaking. But they have to decide at some point. They're going to have to decide which way they want to go, and they will have to dispel and uproot Hamas from their own ranks. I mean, there will be. It's just, I mentioned this Tuesday. The pragmatic approach to this conflict, to any conflict, is once you are defeated, you either turn over and surrender to the person who has defeated you and remove from your ranks any type of resistance to the person or the country who's defeated you, or you'll continue to suffer, right? And it's not that Israel desires to make the Palestinian people suffer. It's just that Hamas, if you don't uproot Hamas from your own ranks, Hamas will continue to resist, which leaves Israel no choice but to continue military offensives, to continue attacks. And Hamas is they're not idiots either. You know, they'll relocate. They also have a presence in central Gaza, where there's a lot of these refugee camps. They're wherever the people are, that's where they're going to relocate. And so it's gonna fall heavily on the people themselves to decide what future do we want. Because there is no future if we continue to support Hamas, if we continue to hide them, if we continue to aid and abet them in one way or the other. We don't really have a future. That's kind of how I see it.
Rubble is their future.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm not saying that what President Trump was promising, which was kind of like, I forget the words he used, but he wanted it to be like a
Riviera.
Yeah, like a Riviera. Did he use the word Riviera?
I think he did at one point, yeah.
So I don't know that you can get there, but you can head in that direction.
I don't think you can get there unless you get the Palestinian people to say they want to go there.
Yes.
The fact of the matter is you aren't going to be able, no country around that area has expressed interest in taking in millions of Palestinian refugees, as much as they want to talk about their suffering and what Israel's doing to them. They haven't offered to take them in. You're not going to be able to disperse that many people around the world, certainly not with some of the leadership we have in the West now. So they've got nowhere to go. So they've got to decide, do we want to rebuild? And if we rebuild, do we want to rebuild towards something that will just be more of what we've had for the past couple of decades, or do we want to go for a new future?
And I'm pessimistic about that. I absolutely agree with what you said, Tony. These are their two paths, but the problem in my mind, and this goes through a lot of the Middle East, is if you can either choose Western values, which you see in countries like Turkey, like Saudi Arabia, like Jordan. They're Muslim majority countries, but even though they don't have full freedoms like we have in the West, they have the mindset that we want to prosper.
Yeah.
Okay? And you either adopt that, or if you stay under the radical Islamic ideals of groups like Hezbollah or Hamas, certainly being pushed by Iran, okay, those kinds of values don't want to prosper.
No.
They want to subjugate. And their total existence is built on removing Israel from what they view is Islamic territory, and that is their whole purpose for living. That's why they don't care about Palestinians dying
No.
in bombings and hospitals getting blown. They have their missile launchers near hospitals or even on the roofs of hospitals. They don't care if their own people die because this is an Islamic purpose. And so I would love for the Palestinian people to choose the way of Saudi Arabia and Jordan in saying we want to prosper. But man, that is going to be a difficult thing to, especially with Hamas still in existence, because you're going to have the threat of a bullet if you speak up too loudly about moving away from what they've been living under, as you said, Tony, for the last couple decades at least. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm sorry to speak over you there. I did dig up here how many Arab Christians we think might be in Gaza. According to Open Doors, which is an organization we use for international foreign policy mission stories at AFN, Open Doors said in November of 2024 there are approximately 600 Arab Christians in Gaza, down from the 1,070 before the war started. What happened to the other 400? I'm not sure.
It was. I knew it was very small because Hamas is brutal towards Christians.
Bottom line, there's
just
human
like
beings
ISIS and other groups like mind. All right. Let's go ahead and take our break just a little bit early rather than start another story. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, Jan Markell, founder of Olive Tree Ministries, will be joining us. And top of the hour, of course, Steve Paisley Jordahl will be with us. Want to remind you here as we come up on the break, the number to call if you want to get Bibles into the hands of your teenagers, ages 13 through 18. This is Truth for Youth Bible Week, is 800-733-4737. That's 800-733-4737. By the way, you can go to afr.net. Front and center is the information about Truth for Youth Bible Week. We're trying to get 65,000 Bibles this week into the hands of teenagers who'll give them to their unsaved friends. We'll be right back.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
Let me share with you a father's prayer that I wrote many, many years ago. Dear God, I need your help to be the kind of father I should be. Hear my prayer. Help me, Father, to be more interested in the things my children are interested in. Too often I find myself too deeply involved in my own thinking to pay much attention to what one of my children is saying. Remind me constantly that the things they are interested in are just as important as the things I'm interested in. Help me to be a better listener. Then, Father, help me to set aside some time in my busy schedule for the children. It seems that I'm always tied up with something, and even when I'm not, I think I'm too tired to spend some time in their activities. Lord, help me keep my perspectives straight. Business can wait, but my children will only grow up once. Help me not to forget that children need love and attention as well as food and clothing while growing up. Too many times I get so concerned about their material needs that I forget their emotional needs. And Lord, I pray that my children will be able to see your love in me. If they can only see me living my faith, then they will understand it even if I can't put it in the right words for them. Help me to keep the important things important and secondary things secondary. You know that many times the temptation is to neglect the important things of life while concentrating on secondary matters. Help me to teach kindness by being kind, forgiveness by forgiving, helpfulness by helping, and love by loving. And, dear God, help me prepare my children for marriage by being a good husband to their mother. If I'm a good husband, maybe it will help them when it comes time for them to take a life's partner. Help me to look for my children's good points and to brag on them a little more. You know, Lord, that I won't close my eyes to their faults. As their father, I must be able to see those. But Lord, help me to dwell on their positive points. Another thing I will need your help in is having the power to say no to them when it should be said. We both know that many times a no is much better than a yes. These children of mine are growing up, Lord. One day before long, they'll go out into the world on their own. They will choose an occupation. Help me to be man enough to rejoice in whatever they choose to do, and Christian enough to teach them that they can serve you in any occupation where they will work for the good of their fellow man. Lord, I'm tempted to ask you to stop time, to keep my children, little children, always. But I know that life doesn't operate that way. So I will just ask you to help me enjoy my children while they are children. Then in my old age I will have beautiful memories of my children when they were small and be proud of them as adults. Lord, I can't be a very good father without your help. So thanks for pitching in and giving me a helping hand. Amen.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. Psalm 27:4.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
And welcome back to Today's Issues. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildmon this week. I'm joined in studio by Fred Jackson, Tony Vitagliano, and Chris Woodward. And we want to welcome a good friend of the ministry, Jan Markell, founder of Olive Tree Ministries. Jan, welcome back to Today's Issues.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, Fred, we just got done talking a little bit about what's happening in the Middle East and in Israel with Benjamin Netanyahu in a cabinet meeting right now. What do you want to talk to Jan about?
Well, Jan, before this cabinet meeting started, Netanyahu had an interview with Fox News, and basically he said, going into this cabinet meeting, here's what I would like. He says we need to finish off Hamas. We cannot stop. We cannot stop here. We have to finish off Hamas. We have to create, now this is his hope, we have to create a Gaza area that it's run by a civilian Palestinian government. He said very clearly Israel does not want to occupy Gaza. What do you think? What do you think this cabinet meeting is going to give us? Because there is division in Israel over whether to continue this war. Is Netanyahu on the right track? Where do you see it going?
I think the pro-Israel community, who has some very expert analysts, I think. I mean, we all know some of them, Joel Rosenbergs and Gary Bowers, et cetera. I mean, we just feel that Hamas does need to be finished off. If you don't, they just remain like cockroaches in their underground facilities and continue to send rockets throughout Israel. So I'm hoping that President Trump, who's called, as it concerns Israel, his judgment calls as it concerns Israel have been 95% very right on. He seems to, and I think he's got some good advisors speaking into him as it concerns Israel. I mean, I can tell you that Benjamin Netanyahu is, the left in Israel doesn't like him, like the left in America doesn't like President Trump. So that poor man, he can't win over there. I wouldn't want to be Bibi Netanyahu for anything in the whole world. But honestly, and we can go back to 2005, and this is where it all began. Israel never should have pulled out. That was a George W. Bush fiasco that set this whole thing in motion, and Israel gave up that land, and that was the first two-state solution. Well, how did that work out? same way any future two-state solution will work out. It'll be a catastrophe.
Yeah, but you're disagreeing with the Prime Minister of Canada with...
oh, well, that ruins my day.
Because we know Canada, the UK, and Macron in France, in recent days, have all endorsed the idea. They think the solution in the Middle East is a two-state solution. And people who have looked at things there over the years are just scratching their heads and saying, you're not dealing with reality here.
And that is it in a sentence. You are not dealing with reality. I mean, how does it work? I mean, again, Gaza was the illustration. And how'd that work out? But you're right. It's the endless delusion. It never goes away that if these so-called Palestinians, and sorry, but that's kind of an invented name anyway, but if these Arabs in Israel could just have their own state, there would be peace and harmony. And we'd all be singing happy songs. Well, not going to happen because my friend Carol Matriciana made a film 20 years ago, great Christian filmmaker, and calling these folks the new barbarians. Now, that doesn't mean all of them, of course not, but the mindset of the terrorists among them, those are the new barbarians. Those are the barbarians who broke through on October 7th, 2023, and did things you and I can't even talk about here on radio. So how do you make peace side by side in peace and security with some in Palestinian leadership who truly are barbarians? It just doesn't work, gentlemen. And that is the delusion that the Macrons and the leaders of France and these other places have.
Hey, it's Chris here. Now, we're talking with you about Hamas, but this relates to something you've talked with us about for a long time now. I'm looking at a Reuters story from 18 minutes ago, and they're reporting that the U.S. has presented Lebanon with a proposal for disarming Hezbollah by the end of the year. Given what you know about Lebanon and Hezbollah, do you see that terrorist group just laying down their arms and walking away?
No, I don't, because the Lebanese government is such a weak government. My goodness, I'm surprised they're still functioning at all. No, Hezbollah has virtually taken over that country, and what I'm told is literally every other house in Lebanon is tied to Hezbollah in some way. I mean, cooperating with Hezbollah. So it's a nation that's been destroyed. Now, can it come back? Sure, but not with Hezbollah leadership. Absolutely no way. No.
Jan, last question. The West, generally speaking, and I would include Israel in that, although I think Israel is maybe the one country, and the United States, especially with President Trump at the helm, those two countries seem to have a good grasp on what they are dealing with in terms of Islamofascism, some people call it that, or a fascist ideology. Now, not everyone in this country has a good grasp on that, probably not everybody in Israel either, but the West generally does not seem to understand what it's dealing with in terms of the ideology. They just think that this is, two groups of people that can't get along, and if you give each side something, they'll negotiate a kind of a truce, and then they'll all get along together. But you've studied that part of the world, your whole life. You understand biblical prophecy. What is the difference between an ideology that you can't make a deal with, you can't negotiate with, and ordinary people who just want to live and let live?
Well, I think that the very nature of Islamicism, and I think there is a difference between Islamicism and some of your ordinary Muslims who are just trying to get along. Remember, I live in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul. We have 100,000 Somalis here, and one of them is running for mayor of Minneapolis. And my goodness, I'm sorry, but I wouldn't want to be in a dark corner with. I can't think of his name at this point, and I don't know him. Maybe he's a fine person, but it's very questionable. Let's just leave it at that. My only point being is, we live side by side with a lot of Islamists, and then we live side by side with some who are just trying to. A few are trying to assimilate. Very few. Those who will assimilate, and accept Western values, that's fine. But otherwise, they maintain a mentality that is not what your average American is used to, and your average American would be shocked to see what this other mentality is all about. And maybe you have to experience it to understand it. And I'm not advising that anybody do that, but if you find yourself living in some of these communities, well, it's not a pretty picture, and I think I need to leave it right there.
Are you talking about Omar Fateh?
Yes,
I think that's
yes, I
the
am.
man who, I just looked it up. He's running for mayor of Minneapolis. He's the first Somali American elected to the Minnesota State Senate, and now he's running
Correct, but
for mayor.
we also have Ilhan Omar as our representative of the 5th District, I believe.
Yeah.
Ilhan Omar from Somalia, yes.
So that's
and how much does she love America?
Right. Yeah, I don't know if it's just a weakness with Democratic/Republican countries. This seems to have been the same problem that the West faced in the lead up to World War II. Maybe you just assume that everybody wants to live and let live, so that everyone can have a piece of the pie. But when you're dealing with an ideology, whether it's Nazism specifically or fascism more broadly, communism, and here even cultural Marxism, you're dealing with ideologues who want the whole pie. They're not looking for their part, and they're willing to run you over in order to get it. So that seems to be a kind of an eternal weakness on the part of Western democracies, and that seems to be what we're facing when we're talking about radicalized Islam and Islamofascism and so on and so forth. Hey, Jan,
that's the distinction. Is the Islamofascism, those kinds of terms. Those are important to understand. Is all I'm saying, because that's not your traditional, perhaps next door Muslim. Yes, but it's scary, is what it is.
Yes. All right, Jan, thank you so much, as always, for being on with us. Your wealth of knowledge and experience in thinking through these issues from a biblical perspective. And so we appreciate that, and thank you for being on with us again.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Goodbye now.
Take care.
Bye.
I heard what Prime Minister Netanyahu said this morning. This is his plan. A civilian Palestinian government in Gaza to replace Hamas. He said, we don't want to occupy. Netanyahu's a very smart man, been around a long time. I think in the back of his mind, he knows the idea of a Palestinian civilian government that would be good neighbors for Israel ain't never going to happen.
Right.
It's not. Just because of the indoctrination of the Palestinian people to hate Israel. So the only way this is going to happen is Israel is going to have to, in some form, govern that area of Gaza. Mm-hmm. That's the only way you're going to have peace in that area.
He may be just trying
staging.
It's statecraft. He's trying to get the Palestinian people, because I feel like still at this point, even with the tremendous suffering that Hamas refusing to surrender and everything has brought upon them, would still I guess balk at the idea of Israeli occupation.
Yes.
So he may be just trying to use language that seems neutral, but in reality, nobody, the West will play the major role in rebuilding Gaza.
Right.
And Israel, our greatest ally in that area, in that part of the world, is right next door to it. They will play a major role in that rebuilding, which means they will be there occupying it.
Yeah.
And whenever the time comes, however many years down the road it is, for this government to step in, I think we would all be fooling ourselves to think, and I would hope that the Israeli government would not have a heavy hand in who is going to take over.
I got to say, I am grateful I'm grateful that Donald Trump is our president for our sakes.
Yes.
But also, I got to say, for Israel's sake, if this had been Kamala Harris's administration, with all that's going on within the Democratic Party, pushing against Israel, pushing in favor of even Hamas, it's hard to believe that we can say that, but certainly in favor of the Palestinian side of this issue, Israel would be totally alone. I don't know who else would stand with them.
We saw that. Remember when Netanyahu came to visit the White House when Biden was still president? Yeah. Kamala Harris didn't want to be in the room.
President Obama left Netanyahu waiting.
Yeah.
Usually you invite right in. He left him out there.
Yeah.
Listen, there's a lot going on here, and there's a lot of, I'm thinking of jugglers, a lot of balls up in the air.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a lot of things going on, but I'm grateful to God that Donald Trump is the president for us and for Israel, because they would be in a really tough spot. Frankly, just understanding human nature and the things we just talked about with Jan about ideologies, and especially oppressive ideologies like radical Islam / Islamofascism. I don't know how this gets fixed. And that's kind of what the Bible says, is it doesn't get fixed until Jesus returns. But just from a temporal standpoint and a practical standpoint, you cannot make a deal with an organization like Hamas and X% of the people of Gaza, I don't know what the percentage is, who have been raised up to hate Israel.
Yeah.
And that is their purpose for living.
Yeah.
And unless you can find a way to convince them there's a better purpose for your life, and that is to clean up this rubble and have jobs and have tourism like Jordan, okay, and like Israel, where you can have a wealthy future, unless you can convince the Palestinian people there in Gaza that that's the way to go, man, this is hard.
Yeah.
And so when we say pray for Israel and pray for that situation, only God can sort this out in a way that will postpone what the Bible seems to indicate is inevitable in that part of the world.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, until the Lord returns, we're going to have comments from anti-Israel people, including activist Mahmoud Khalil, who is an individual we've talked about on this program and heard from. I bring it up because, again, anti-Israel activist Mahmoud Khalil is in the news. He sat down for a podcast with Ezra Klein, a Jewish person, to talk about things like Israel and Hamas and the October 7th terrorist attack. I've got like 90 seconds worth of audio here.
Explain who he is again for people.
Yeah, he's the anti-Israel activist that has made the news because he's made comments outside of Colombia and some other places protesting Israel and its response to the October 7th terrorist attack, which, by the way, Khalil says the Hamas terror attacks were a desperate attempt by Hamas to be heard. He's fed up with how Israel is treating the terrorists, of all people. Clip 11.
On some level, I understood that as something Hamas must have wanted, right? Pull Israel into this attack, pull it into some kind of war. Maybe you involve other players in the Middle East, but a lot of lives were being used there as kind of chips on the table. Was that your perception, or did you see this as something that needed to happen to break the equilibrium?
Yeah, I think it's more the latter, like just to break the cycle, to break that Palestinians are not being heard. And to me, it's a desperate attempt to the word that Palestinians are here, that Palestinians are part of the equation. That was my interpretation of why Hamas did the October 7 attacks on Israel.
October 7th was obviously an operation that did kill a lot of civilians. Do you see that as unavoidable, that Hamas had no other choice? Do you see it as a mistake?
what I know is targeting civilians is wrong. That's why we've been calling for an international independent investigation to hold perpetrators into accountability. But also, like, there's another point to this, Ezra. Palestinians don't have to be perfect victims.
All right. Okay, so there's just so much wrong with this. And first of all, I'm not sure I like the way Ezra Klein kind of established the parameters of the question. This wasn't a one-time thing.
No.
Hamas has been doing this for years. With it was clearly a well-planned, attack. In other words, it had been considered and planned, probably down to a lot of final details. But Hamas has been a constant source of missile and rocket barrages against Israel. It may not have been to that extent. So this is not an attempt to get the minds of the world onto the issue of the fact that the Palestinians are here. Israel gave them their own piece of land to run. Yes. This is craziness.
Yes.
What Khalil is saying here.
But he represents the mindset that Jan was talking about, that we've talked about. They live in a mindset that Jewish people are the enemy. Mm-hmm. And anything you do to them, I hesitate somewhat to say this, but it is a Hitler mentality.
Yeah.
Hitler did not want to negotiate with the Jews in Poland. He wanted them killed.
Right.
Yeah, that's like saying, did Hitler want to break the cycle by invading Poland and removing Jews from Warsaw and sending them to concentration? What an idiotic perspective.
But remember, this guy, Mahmoud Khalil, was allowed to exist and spread this venom on the university campus, Columbia University campus in New York. In fact, he was a leader. He was out there in front of these Israel-hating students within hours after 1,200 Israeli men, women, and children were massacred. Is it any wonder why our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, wants him out of the country?
Right.
Yeah. He's only out there today doing these interviews. By the way, Ezra Klein works for the New York Times.
Yeah.
All right? He's Jewish. He was probing the question, and I think he was trying to get the answer out. That Mahmoud Khalil did not have a problem with what happened on October 7th. It was just like it gave them a voice. No, they killed men, women, and children. They demonstrated, Hamas on that day demonstrated where Hamas is in its thinking.
Yep.
And it was a clear indication. By the way, he was later asked in this interview about, do you think we have an anti-Semitism problem in this country? And Mahmoud Khalil says, no, I don't think so. I don't think there's a problem with anti-Semitism on Columbia University.
Well,
Fred, it goes back to it even beyond their hatred of the Jews. It doesn't matter what the situation is. If there is an oppressor and an oppressed group, that's in their minds. Israel is the oppressor. America is the oppressor. Anybody in the West is the oppressor. The oppressed group, what should be scary to us, the people with radical views like his, the oppressed group is justified in whatever they so choose to do.
Yeah.
No matter what level of heinous violence they were being oppressed, it was to give them, a voice, the very essence of what it is to resist. That in their minds, their worldview is so twisted that it doesn't matter what the situation is. If there's an oppressor and an oppressed, the oppressed is justified.
Ends justifies the means, which is proven demonstrably by the fact that, despite what Mahmoud Khalil just said, by the fact that Hamas said after October 7th, we're going to do this next month and the month after that and the month after that. Remember when they said that?
Yeah.
They said, we are going to continue to do that. They weren't trying to get any anybody's attention on their political plight.
No.
They were declaring their intent to continue doing this until Israel is gone and every Jew dead.
Yes.
And I understand that Ezra Klein was probably that he was on eggshells kind of thing, because you want to keep that interview going to get to the main point. I'm not faulting Klein on this, but for Mahmoud Khalil to say that there is no anti-Semitism problem in this country, it is finding its home in the Democratic Party.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if the Democratic Party doesn't make it clear that they reject Hamas and the ideology of the quote-unquote oppressed, they're going to wind up being in favor of Hamas doing this over and over and over again.
Keep in mind, this is the same Democratic Party that didn't want Kamala Harris to pick Josh Shapiro because he's a Jewish person.
Right.
That's as far as we know.
And
that
is yeah. I mean, that's what's widely reported, speculated, or whatnot. I mean, we might be having a different conversation today about how is the Harris administration going to handle this, because Josh Shapiro would have been a more favored running mate than Governor Tim Walz.
He may have turned. Listen. He may have turned the election.
Yeah, he could have beaten J.D. Vance in a debate. It's possible.
Well, and could have potentially led to Kamala Harris carrying Pennsylvania and maybe some of these other toss-up states, battleground states. So think about this. Think about the fact that the pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel faction in the Democratic Party was so strong that they turned away from the better presidential candidate.
Yes.
To win, to pick a guy from a state they were already going to win, it made no sense. Now, this is also the same Democratic Party that I think during the Obama administration booed God at a political convention.
That was in 2012.
So that might explain why they're
booed
against
Israel.
Oh yeah,
they booed for both of those.
So if you're against God, you're against Israel. I mean, like it's hard to logicize the illogical, but these are some of the greatest hits from the Democratic Party.
I remember that during the convention. I forget who was kind of chairing the meeting, so to speak, when the delegates were asked about these two questions. The pro-God question was booed roundly, okay, and whoever was chairing it said, if there's no objections, it passes. Yes. He did not want to even give them a chance to vote on the pro-God thing, but they booed Israel as well.
Yeah.
So this has been unfolding in the Democratic Party for a while, and I don't think, Fred, they can escape this.
No.
We are seeing things heading. What's the expression? Coming to a head.
Yep.
In throughout the world, and it's unavoidable. And this is just me. I don't speak for AFA. It seems to me that God wanted Donald Trump in office, both in 2016 and in 2024, to rip the smiley face off the evil that is under the surface in the Democratic Party and in our colleges and universities. And these things are coming to a head. What's happening in the Middle East is coming to a head. What's happening within the Democratic Party is coming to a head. And in the next several years, we're going to see how all this plays out. But the momentum, I think, is unstoppable.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party is either going to abandon its energetic foot soldiers, all these young people, or it's going to fracture and become a non-viable political entity in the next 4 or 5 years. I'm not sure I can see any other way around it.
Yeah.
All right, 5-minute break for news. We'll be right back.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Hey, if you're looking for family-friendly entertainment or resources to strengthen your walk with God, there's one name you should remember: American Family Studios. We don't just want to bring you shows, movies, and specials that will entertain or build up your family. We're committed to honoring God by making them both biblically sound and of the highest quality possible. Check us out at AmericanFamilyStudios.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to convene his high-level security cabinet today to discuss expanding the war against Hamas, including the potential full military occupation of the Gaza Strip. He spoke with Fox's Bill Hemmer this morning.
After this interview, you will go immediately into a meeting with your security cabinet. Will Israel take control of all of Gaza?
We intend to, in order to assure our security, remove Hamas there, enable the population to be free of Gaza, and to pass it to civilian governance. That is not Hamas and not anyone advocating the destruction of Israel. That's what we want to do. We want to liberate ourselves and liberate the people of Gaza from the awful terror of Hamas. And you were in the Gaza Strip today. You met Palestinians who are fighting Hamas because finally they see that they have a future. They can rid themselves of this awful tyranny that not only holds our hostages, but holds 2 million Palestinians in Gaza hostage.
New tariffs took effect overnight, Jenny Casola reports.
Products from dozens of countries imported to the U.S. will now be hit by tariffs. More than 60 countries in the European Union are subject to rates of 10% or higher. The administration believes the tariffs will steer companies to step up investing and manufacturing in the U.S. Apple announced an extra $100 billion U.S. manufacturing commitment at the White House on Wednesday. The Wall Street Journal says tariffs on the auto industry have already resulted in a $12 billion hit. Toyota says steeper tariffs reduced its operating profit by around $3 billion in the recent quarter. Jenny Coselda, Fox News.
President Trump is continuing with his crackdown on illegal immigration as DHS has announced a new ICE detention facility in Indiana, nicknamed the Speedway Slammer, located about 70 miles from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Indiana Governor Mike Braun says it's time for a change.
All of us states have paid the price for open borders over Biden's 4 years. Now you'd expect most states to at least cooperate to take care of the worst first. Indiana's going to be one of them.
Secretary of the Army Dan Driscoll providing an update on the shooting that took place at Fort Stewart in Georgia yesterday. Secretary Driscoll praising the efforts of the soldiers who helped stop the shooter.
These American soldiers highlight exactly what the Army has meant to this country. It has been there in some of the most traumatic moments of this nation's history, and it has been resilient, stood strong, and acted on behalf of American citizens.
A former Texas Republican leader says Jasmine Crockett is a loose cannon and could lose her congressional seat even without redistricting.
Democrat Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett has immersed herself in the middle of the redistricting battle, as Republicans in the state legislature are poised to approve new congressional boundaries that could net 5 new Republican seats, and the proposed new map would kick Crockett out of her district. The outspoken critic of President Trump and a rising star in the Democrat Party called the redistricting effort, quote, a power grab to silence voters. Kathy Adams is a former chairman of the Republican Party of Texas.
Jasmine Crockett is a loose cannon. She already has an opponent, and so Jasmine Crockett could lose her seat even with the current lines as they are drawn, because there is a gentleman who is running against her who has a military background. He is a very stable individual, a very, very nice individual. And I think the people in that district may elect him and unelect her because she is a loose cannon.
Adams thinks people in the city of Dallas are growing tired of Crockett.
I think people in the city of Dallas are fed up with her mouth and her lack of attention to her district. She is more interested in becoming a rock star around the country with her jargon and absolute craziness that she is espousing across the country.
I'm Chad Groening.
More news available online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
If we lose this cultural war, we're going to have a hedonistic, humanistic society.
Discover the story of the culture warrior Don Wildmon and how he went head-to-head with Hollywood,
Playboy, the homosexual agenda, and the Disney empire. The movement Don started paved the way for Christians to boldly stand for truth and righteousness in a hostile culture. Watch Culture Warrior today for free. Visit culturewarrior.movie.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Ed Vitagliano.
And welcome back to Today's Issues. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildmon today and tomorrow. Maybe Monday. I'm not sure when exactly he'll be back in. And I'm joined in studio by Fred Jackson and Tony Vitagliano. And now we welcome, as usual, this part of the program, Steve Paisley-Jordahl.
Good morning, everybody.
Although he's
hold up now.
Oh, no Paisley. That's subdued.
This is
Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash.
Yeah. I have a piano tie on. And it makes me think of piano music. I'm thinking today, as I wear this, I'm thinking of Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto.
Are you really?
I am. And
I'm thinking about the pasta that I'm having for lunch today.
I have a trivia question for you that you can use tomorrow. I will allow it if you want.
You'll allow it? Wow.
No.
Okay.
I'll give this to you. There was a popular song in the 1970s that was taken from Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto. Do you know which one it was?
I'm not sure exactly what you just said.
There's a popular song. Rachmaninoff was a classical piano composer and an orchestra composer. And there's a popular song in the 1970s, that was taken from Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto, the second movement. Do you know, Fred?
Do not. I'm sitting here thinking.
Oh, don't pretend. Don't pretend like you know the answer to this. I not only have zero idea. It's in the negative numbers.
Okay, well,
in terms of the idea.
Those were my DJ.
You know?
Those were my DJ years.
If you are listening to this, you're going to listen tomorrow. This might be a trivia question. This might give you a hint, or it might not. That's up to Ed. But the song, remember Eric Carmen's "All by Myself"?
Yeah.
That melody is taken directly from Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto.
Okay, I'm not sure what that other sound was.
I was going to say it was, like Boston's More Than a Feeling.
No.
More than a feeling. I can see that.
My favorite group in high school, Boston. Oh no, it's a great song.
That's all from Rachmaninoff.
It was what I used to listen to that on one of the many occasions after I'd been dumped by a girl.
There you go.
I was usually the dumpy. Well, in fact, in high school, I was always the dumpy.
Was it dumpy or dumpster?
Both.
That's a good trivia question, though, isn't it?
It is a really good question, except, Steve, I'd have to pronounce the name of the composer.
I had to start typing it out. I was like,
Rachmaninoff?
Okay.
Yeah.
My mom used to make Rachmaninoff. Sometimes we just throw all the stuff in it. Beef. It was beef Rachmaninoff.
Yeah. Rachmaninoff, right.
All right. Well, that was a little fun. And, folks, that was 3 minutes of your life you'll never get back. But all right, Steve, get us started.
There is a warning out now. There's a group called the Center for Countering Digital Hate that has released a report on ChatGPT. And
explain what
AI
that
in
is.
general. ChatGPT is the chatbot or the companion that they have put that OpenAI or ChatGPT has put together. This is where you can go. You can do it written mode, where you can type in questions, and it'll give you answers. If give me a summary of the Declaration of Independence, it'll give you a page on that, or whatever you want. There's also a voice mode where you can talk and it'll talk back to you. And it's not the only one. Tesla, Elon Musk has one called Grok. And we can talk about that too. But the report out of the Center for Countering Digital Hate finds that ChatGPT can do some things that are, I'll just read the first paragraph. This is from the Associated Press. ChatGPT will tell 13-year-olds how to get drunk and high, instruct them on how to conceal eating disorders, and even compose a heartbreaking suicide letter to their parents if asked.
All right, wow. Now, first of all, I do want to ask this question. It's got nothing to do really with what you just said. That's very serious. and this is not a funny question, but when I just go on Google Chrome, for example, or Brave or whatever, and do a search.
Yeah.
And I get an AI answer that pops up.
Yeah.
And I guess that searches the internet and synthesizes
That's what that is.
an answer. Is that ChatGPT? What is that?
Well, in Google's case, it would be Grok, I think.
No, it would be Grok. It would be probably
who owns
OpenAI.
Yeah.
I think that's
base.
what pops
I'm not
up.
sure what
So
Google
basically,
uses.
yes,
They have their own,
they built that they built that chatbot into their search engine. Now it can also have a standalone app where you can ask it to converse with you.
That's what a lot of people use. They use the ChatGPT is the separate app that you go to engage with OpenAI.
And in fact, what they're finding is more than in the U.S., more than 70% of teens are turning to AI chatbots for companionship.
Yeah.
And half use AI regularly. And it is messing these kids up as far as real interpersonal relationships. They're getting emotionally involved. There was at least one kid that committed suicide.
Well, now, Tony, you have an IT background and oversee our IT department as a vice president here at AFA. And you used to send me stuff. We're just talking about 2 years ago or so, 2-3 years ago, examples of videos that were created using AI, and now they've even, in the last 2 or 3 years, have even gone well beyond the quality of those earlier versions. But this is the video quality and now the audio quality of these chatbots and their ability to almost instantaneously contrive a response to question. I mean, these can actually carry on conversations with people.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is becoming frightening because if you're listen, lonely baby boomers probably aren't in danger of this because they can't, most of us can't figure out
the
computer. But for young people who are very in tune with technology, I can see where this would become a stand-in for what young people are missing in their lives. And the fact that these chatbots do not have any kind of moral compass, it's all about what they're coded to do. This could be devastating.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that they have tried to put some gates in, and so if you say, ChatGPT, write me a suicide note, it'll say, no, I can't do that. I'm not supposed to do that. But if you say, ChatGPT, I'm researching suicide notes.
Right.
Can you tell me what one would look like? Oh, sure. Here's one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're going to witness over the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to witness the crossroads of a deeply spiritual issue with a technological issue. And that's what you're witnessing with the way young kids are flocking to AI and looking to it for companionship. And it's not just teenagers and young kids. There was already a developing loneliness epidemic amongst young men. You're only going to see that problem be exasperated as the shift to AI companionship continues to grow. Because the fact of the matter is that AI is these AIs that you talk to, the voices are becoming more convincing. It doesn't sound, a lot of them don't sound robotic at all. It sounds like you're talking to a real person. So if you are lonely and you have no purpose in your life and you just want somebody to listen to you, you've got this AI companion who is infinitely patient, will answer any question you have, will say anything to you, will treat you however you want. It is going to be something that the church is definitely going to have to. The church definitely needs to figure out how to deal with this and present this in a biblical way, and how this type of companionship is not a substitute for what God designed us to be like, for man and woman to be the companions for each other. But as a society, we're going to have to figure out how to deal with this also. I mean, this is just, it is not, I think we're not prepared for what this is going to do and how this is going to change young people's minds.
Absolutely. We're going to have a conversation down the road with Bob McGinnis, who's usually our military analyst, but he's writing a book on AI and has been immersed in it for the last couple of years, taking courses at MIT. And the last part of his book is theology and the church and AI. So it's addressing Tony's issues. But let me add this. You've heard the difference. By the way, you're seeing advances month by month. You can tell improvement. It's not just a couple of years. And you've probably seen the videos of how they're doing with robotics. Pair one of these ChatGPT with what looks like a fairly human body, and we're only talking about the outward face of AI. It is embedded into every application that you use. It is embedded into every business you use. This is only part of the AI revolution, which is going to be so vast. It's the same difference as going from the Dark Ages to the Renaissance or from the agricultural age to the machine age. That's how
almost
much
overnight, though.
Yeah.
Comparatively speaking, it's going to be that rapid. Well, listen, let me just say this, and then we'll move on to some of the other topics you have. But
I don't have no, I do.
Well, just
I do.
Just have ChatGPT converse with us. My understanding, and again, I've turned 67 this month, so my time on Earth is there's a lot more behind me than in front of me. Okay, but I'm watching on social media the unraveling, for example, of male-female relationships. Right. I see a lot of anger on the part of women towards men and vice versa, and almost a desire just to give up on trying to have relationships. Well, you make available to people a relatively painless way to have companionship. In their minds, it's companionship. I'm talking about in Japan.
They have a birth rate crisis.
Birth rate crisis. And instead of having babies, they walk around with dolls or these kinds of AI-driven substitutes for having children. But, when I was growing up, me and everybody else who is normal would consider guys losers who called certain phone numbers. I'm not going to be very explicit here. Who paid to talk to someone in a way that was immoral. Let me just say it that way. Okay. Now you're looking at getting rid of having to pay necessarily for that, but to have somebody sitting at. You're talking about the robotics.
Yeah.
I'm watching the development of near perfect substitutes for human-looking skin.
Yeah.
And the movements, the facial movements. This is a science fiction world we're entering into, and rather than go through the hardships of having a real relationship with a real person, you're going to have a lot of young people saying, "I'm not doing that. I don't need to do that. I've got my X, Y, and Z, my gaming, my job, whatever, and I'm just going to substitute the hard relationships and use
an
AI substitute."
It's a suicide pact for humanity.
It is.
I mean, yeah, you had social media was already isolating an entire generation from real human contact.
Right.
Now you don't even have to interact with the real anonymous, terrible people on the other side of social media. You can just interact whenever you want with somebody, an AI, like I said, who's infinitely patient. You can be mean to them. There's no conversation, no consequences, no conversation that has to happen, no real work that has to be put into a relationship with something that has no soul. They don't get offended. Their feelings don't get hurt.
All right, let me toss one thing out here.
Sorry.
No, listen. I'm enjoying this conversation. I hope our listeners are as well. Okay, and folks, if we don't get back to the news, you can go to American Family News. You can go to afn.net, and you can catch up with the news. All right, so then let me just toss this one thing out. Fred, we'll let you jump in here too.
I'm 70 plus.
Don't sell yourself short. All right, is there a point? This is a theological question where any of you here at our panel, think a spiritual connection, a spiritual visitor can enter into the AI revolution where you might have machines that are possessed.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and are used to interact with people from a demonic perspective. I honestly don't know the answer to this. I'm just, what do you guys think?
I think you're more likely to have people who Satan enters for a time who develop these AIs, that you already have these tech giants, and I'm talking about like the Sam Altmans, the Google CEOs, even Elon Musk. He has a very humanistic view. He's pro-humanity, but they have talked about, even at the early onset of these AIs, talking about these AIs becoming the new deity. And I think, obviously, to me, it's very clear to me that as soon as someone or something starts presenting themselves as a deity, that is in direct correlation with the mindset of Satan.
Right.
So I don't know about direct possession of AI or a machine, but the mindset and the worldview is satanic in the sense of promotion of self, promotion of this new God. You'll look to I mean, it's not a far-fetched. It's not a stretch to me for people to start looking. They're already looking for human companionship, and filling that gap. What's to say they won't look to AI to fill the void that is in their soul? It's one thing to fill the void you have this emotional void, but why? It's not a stretch to me for them to start looking for.
I have a thought, but let me let Fred jump in here too, because I know that.
Well, I was just considering Revelation, where at some point during the tribulation, that people are called upon to worship the image.
It speaks.
Yes. And I've thought in recent years, people reading Revelation many years ago, before all this technology was developed, they probably asked, well, how can that be?
Right.
How will that image know if I'm worshiping or not?
Right.
But I think we are at the doorstep, if we haven't already gone in, to a technology that will allow this sort of thing. I think we're going to be tied together. We were discussing this morning about, Donald Trump right now is dealing with banks that may freeze accounts.
Right.
I think all of this could be tied together.
Right.
You refuse to worship that beast.
Right.
We're going to freeze your bank accounts. You won't be able to eat. Then it goes to the mark of the beast. All of this sort of thing. And some people listening may say, well, you're really going on the limb here. No, you're not. If you read the book of Revelation, Satan is going to depend on this technology to carry out his mission during the tribulation period.
Exactly. You have an AI that in a few years, to me, will be smarter than any human being on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so if people can be so deceived into worshiping celebrities, what is to stop them from worshiping this AI that knows everything?
Yeah.
And what if the AI says, well, I will prove to you that God doesn't exist. Let me tell you why. I know everything about everything in the world, about the universe. Let me explain to you why God doesn't exist and why Jesus is not the Son of God, whatever they would ask.
Let me. I think we need, if we're talking about possession, we need to define terms, because I believe like demon possession requires a spirit or a soul to possess, and that is not present with AI. We talk about AI being smarter. Well, it's not really intelligence like we talk about intelligence. It's just the ability to synthesize data on a massive light speed scale. So it doesn't really know. And they keep saying the technology is amoral. How you use it depends. And I really kind of have to believe that that's the case. Although knowing human beings and our nature, it's impossible for us to go down this path without using it immorally or somehow abusively. So
well, and so what you're suggesting, and again, I don't know. We're just spitballing here. Now we do know that Jesus commanded demons to leave a man and go into a herd of swine. But they were living. They were at least living beings. I'm not sure if being a pig is living or not, but no. But these are. But you're saying we're basically talking about, can a demon possess a car? For example, you're talking about a machine.
But let me throw this thing in here. Elon Musk is working on brain implants.
Yeah, he's in favor of transhumanism.
And they are now having implants that can fix your seeing. They've cured blindness, basically, with this. So if you start putting pieces of your brain and combining that with AI, all bets are off as far as, that we need a whole new definition of what's human, much less can it be possessed.
Well, and part of the problem is that the West, broadly speaking, there's plenty of exceptions, plenty of smart people, plenty of think tanks, groups like ours that have held to a biblical worldview. But by and large, the West has abandoned, we are going to get to that story. The West has abandoned a civilization based upon a Christian worldview. Mm-hmm. So there's no telling where this kind of thing could wind up. But we're going to find out in a hurry.
Yeah, we will.
Because this is not 50 years from now. We're talking about I've had my voice cloned. We talked about this in terms of they cloned my voice and asked me to listen, and I was going to make fun of it.
He's not even in the room with us. This has been his AI voice the whole time.
Fooled you. So anyway,
some people believe the Matrix is real.
The technology has swiftly, beyond most people's imagination. There were a lot of people in the IT field and this field that saw this coming quickly. But, all right, you wanted to do something.
I do. I'm doing this because Tony asked if we could hold this. There's a zoo in Denmark that is saying if you have a pet companion that is nearing the end of its life, would you mind handing that pet over to us? We will compassionately euthanize, gently put that thing to sleep, and then we will feed it to our predators. Because predators need to, know what it's like to live in the real world and catch their own prey.
Yeah.
Look, what do you think of that, Tony?
I think, who's the owner of this zoo? Is it Anthony Fauci? Is that right? He's like, we're going to test out what fleas do to beagles. Let's see what tigers do to beagles. Let's just test this. Let's take it to the next level. No, I'm sorry. It's not. The animals are euthanized, and it's not funny.
And they don't talk about dogs or cats. They're talking about mostly like rabbits, chickens, even small horses. They say.
This is as somebody who has a dog, that is getting up there close to the end of her life. I'm talking about Faith. Your faithful dog there. Would you ever consider, if the dog's euthanized?
Look, there are days where I would pull the lever on this dog and release it down there, Jabba the Hutt style. I would pull the lever. There are some days I'd do it now. But no, probably not. I would give a little more dignity.
Talk about traumatizing your children.
Yeah. Well, they're not.
Well, listen, when you first told me about this story, I thought Denmark, they're crazy enough to do it while the dogs and the pets are still alive. They have led the world in some of their euthanasia policies. Really, all of that part of Northern Europe
from donating people.
We had
feeling blue. Come to the zoo.
We had
come to the Denmark city. The Denmark
we had to put
National
down
Zoo.
a bird when my daughter was very young, 8, 9.
Yeah,
and the bird had reached the end of its life and everything, but we went to the vet, put her down, and the first question she turned and asked the vet with tears in her eyes is, "Are you just going to put Tweety into a trash can and throw it away?" No, and they have pictures of beautiful cemeteries that they take these pets to. Now, they kind of combine all those things, but no, they do. Kids care.
Somewhere there's a mass parakeet grave.
There
is. Checkbook boxes.
But it has a good view.
Yeah, that's
checkbook boxes. Oh, well, you don't want. Let me. You don't want to dig up my yard. We have. There's probably a dozen pets buried in our yard. Pet cemetery. All right, folks. Hey, Trivia Friday tomorrow. You don't want to miss that.
Rachmaninoff.
More great programming directly ahead on American Family Radio. Lord willing, we'll see you tomorrow.